Oh, so here we go again. I thought I was recording. I wasn't doing anything. So missed a whole lot. Well, I'm gonna sum this one up as well. Got the charcoal, we got wood. I think it's oak, not really sure. Um, you got the beef cheeks over there. You got the thicker ones towards the inside where the heat is. You got the smaller ones toward the outside where the cool is. Um, right now the temperature is showing 2. It's probably gonna get back up to Mm, probably gonna get back up to probably 250, something like that, which is where I kind of want to hold it at. Starting off with charcoal briquettes. Um, and actually, what I'm going to do is to preserve them. I may get away with just one dump. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start to cut this back. So you give it full oxygen on the bottom, so it can breathe. But then you cut the exhaust back, and it'll cut back on the amount of air that it pulls in, allowing the coals and the wood to not burn as fast. Um, With that, you can see now it's a whole lot more smoke coming out. But what you're looking for is the color of the smoke. So you just want to make sure it's not that thick white smoke. You know, it's easy to describe because it smells bad. It smells bad. It kind of make you choke. That type of smoke. This smoke coming out, this is actually a cleaner, more like what you're looking for type of smoke. Some people say it's light blue, maybe, maybe not. Um, but either way, it's a clean burning fire. And you just want to maintain that. I fancy myself a traditionalist, so um, I'm not a fan of pellet. Um, I'm really not a fan of electric. If I'm going to cook with electric or propane, I might as well just cook it inside the house because it's not going to add any flavor to it. Um, Pellets, my opinion, I've used it once or twice. They add smoke, um, but to get it to smoke, you got to, almost got to cook it at like 180 just to get it to smoke. Because if you turn it up to like 250, then it's just a fuel source at that point. It's just gonna burn. It's not gonna add any flavor at all. So pellets, for some people, say is set it and forget it. It's like, yeah, if you want to cook it, it's set it and forget it. If you want to smoke it, no, you got to sit around. You got to let it smoke for a few hours, and then you got to be around to turn the temperature up. Me, like I said, I found myself a traditionalist. I use charcoal. Um, as modern as I get is maybe a probe and a chimney. I came up with charcoal and lighter fluid. We progressed from lighter fluid to I use the we call it I don't use the cube. I use it looks like a little bit of hay. That's kind of what it looks like. It's gonna come to me what it's actually called. It'll come to me in a little bit. But I use that tumbleweed. I use a tumbleweed. And you light that, and it just sit it under the chimney, and it burns the charcoal, but it's a consistent flame that allows the charcoal to ignite. So I use that now because I came up with charcoal and I cut my teeth with lighter fluid. I can always go back to lighter fluid because I know how to do that too. But again, you just go with technology. They came up with different ways of lighting it, a whole lot cleaner, a whole lot safer, and that's what I use. If you can see this thermometer, it is closer to 275. Um, Again, it sounds high. Some people call it hot and fast. It's like, yeah, if I maintain it at 275, 300, it'll be considered hot and fast. But I'm going to let it get there because that's just how much fuel I added in there. I probably added too much too soon. Um, but over time, it'll dwindle down. And as it dwindles down, I just won't add enough fuel to get it back up that high anymore. Yes, pushing closer to 300. Um, but again, because of the type of fuel I use, again, which is charcoal and wood, I have to probably check it like every 10 minutes. And you come back out. I'm not worrying about the briquettes so much as I am worrying about the wood burning out. It's dried wood. It's not kiln dried, so it's not something I got from the store. So it has moisture in it, but it's still gonna burn out. And I've added a little piece, so it's still gonna burn out. And I want to make sure that the smoke flavor gets in. So normally what I do is I'll set my alarm for 10 minutes, and then I'll walk up and do something. The alarm go off. I come back, check it, make sure it's at temperature, If it's that temperature, I leave it alone. Set it for 10 more minutes. If I come back and I see it starting to drop even 5 degrees, I go ahead and add a small piece of wood because it's going to take it 2 or 3 minutes for that to ignite and get the temperature back up. And you just work with it that way. So it's a little more hands-on than the other variations of smoking, but you can't beat the flavor. And again, if you've never had a taco using beef and not ground beef, it's a totally different taste. It's a totally different texture. If you watch how the culture who really does this stuff, the Hispanic culture and the Caribbean culture, that's what they use. They use beef. They don't use ground beef. They don't use sour cream and the condiments that we put on ours. They don't use any of that stuff. At best, they may take a lime. They may take a lime and squeeze over top of it. With citrus and meat. It sounds a little funny, but hey, that's their culture. And we're trying to celebrate their culture, so we do it that way. You only got one question and answer. You want flour or you want corn?